Greetings, one and all, and welcome to Volume 2, Episode number 4 of the all-new NFL Talk original series, Team by Team Previews. You may be wondering why we're doing Episode 4 today when it should have been out yesterday, and you'd be correct in assuming that it should have been out yesterday. However, due to some technical difficulties, yesterday's episode did not take. Yesterday's episode, we previewed the Cleveland Browns. And I really don't want to blame myself. I want to blame someone else, but the problem is there's no one else to blame except for myself. Because I'm the host, I'm the producer, manager, everything of this podcast. So, it's my fault. I hadn't had the microphone turned up as loud as I should have. And, to make a long story short, if you listened to the podcast in the short time that it was up on YouTube, SoundCloud, or Spreaker, you would have heard nothing. So, I'm coming back today to do it with you again. A couple of updates. Coming up this Thursday, which is tomorrow. Tonight and tomorrow, Youth News Radio is having a broadcasting marathon. We'll be doing live shows, podcasts, releasing them for you tomorrow, or tonight rather, and all through tomorrow as well. So check out Youth News Radio. Speaking of Youth News Radio, that's our weekly Twitter follow, at Youth News Radio on Twitter. T-Nos and I host this sports and music podcast together. Check us out at Youth News Radio on Twitter. Also, if you hadn't heard, I mentioned this last podcast, but that's pretty much it. I recently, due to the amount of space Spreaker and SoundCloud allows you to have, or Spreaker rather allows you to have for their free speech plan, I had to delete the Fantasy Football Awards show from Spreaker that is now exclusively available on YouTube. Just wanted to let you guys know about that. Also, we are continuing to accept, I say continuing, but we have not had any submissions for our Fantasy Football League. We will be accepting those still, though, so keep sending them in if you want to be a part of the Youth News / NFL Talk Fantasy Football League. Go right ahead. Let us know on any social media. NFL Talk with Caleb Steindl. Like the page on Facebook. Join the Google Plus community. All that good stuff. Also, coming up this Sunday, I'll be having a live mock draft. I have confirmed it'll be this Sunday, a live mock draft exclusively on YouTube. Don't forget to check that out. Also, next Friday, Youth News Radio is going to have an interview with Gold, Frankincense, and Myrrh. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that, an exclusive interview. All right. Oh, there is one more thing that I wanted to get to that I almost forgot about. We have a poll update, and I'm making the poll exclusively on YouTube, or exclusively on Google Plus, rather. So that's going to be where we have the polls. The latest poll up, does Ryan Fitzpatrick look like a tennis ball? Here are the results so far. This is open throughout the month of August. 28% say yes, that's 21 votes. And 72% say no, that's 53 votes. So the overwhelming majority say no, he doesn't. I, however, think that he does. So that's the poll result. You can still vote on the poll all throughout the month of August if you don't like those results. And that's pretty much all I got, so time to kick things off. All right. Cleveland Browns. The infamous Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns that, if you're not a Cleveland Browns fan, you think they're the worst team in the history of the NFL. And if you are a Cleveland Browns fan, you think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. Well, let me just say this. They're starting to put some of the pieces of the success puzzle together. At least in my opinion. First, by bringing in Robert Griffin III from Washington, the Browns head coach Hugh Jackson said Monday he is, quote, tickled pink, unquote, by Robert Griffin III's upside this season. It's an interesting way of putting it. Kind of like that. I've never, ever heard that phrase used by anyone in the NFL. Just doesn't seem a phrase that would be associated with anyone in the NFL. But nonetheless, Hugh Jackson is tickled pink. And to be quite honest, while that's not the phrase that necessarily comes to mind, I like RG3's potential this season. I do. And he's going to be one of the top quarterbacks worth monitoring. At least I believe so. The Browns bringing in a lot of pieces for him to work with. Obviously, they get Josh Gordon back. They're bringing back Duke Johnson. They've got Corey Coleman. And Terrell Pryor, former quarterback. The guy can do it all. He's playing quarterback and wide receiver. He's coming back as well. The problem with RG3 primarily lies in experience, especially among division rivals. You look at the starting quarterbacks in the division. Ben Roethlisberger has had 169 career starts with the Steelers. Joe Flacco has had 122 starts. Andy Dalton has had 77 starts with the Bengals. And Robert Griffin III has had 0 starts with the Cleveland Browns. On top of that, Robert Griffin III hasn't taken an NFL snap since 2014. All that put together, I'm a bit concerned. 2014 for the Redskins. 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. 68.7% completion percentage. 1,694 yards. We really don't know what we're going to see from Robert Griffin III. He is one of the most, how shall I put this, confusing quarterbacks, because we really don't know what we're going to see from him. We haven't seen him develop over the past year. We haven't had a chance to. He's got tremendous upside. His talent is there. And there are some people who are saying that he could become an interesting sleeper for fantasy purposes this season. I'm not ready to go there yet. I want to wait and see how things develop. But I do like Josh Gordon, and I think that when he comes back, RG3 and Josh Gordon could be one of the better QB wide receiver pairs. One of the better duos in the league. According to the Browns and Josh Gordon himself, he's got to lose weight, however. And that's understandable. Hasn't been playing football for the past year and a half. But then also, the number one wide receivers on the teams here, or on the Cleveland Browns, rather, are not Travis Benjamin or Andrew Hawkins, guys that have been there and been wide receivers for their whole career, but rather Corey Coleman and Terrell Pryor. And like I said, Pryor has been a quarterback in the past. The Browns wide receiver coach Al Saunders said that Corey Coleman is dealing with a hamstring issue and might not play in the Friday night preseason opener, which I'm not entirely sure who they're playing. I'm gonna have to check on that. I'll let you know about that anyways. But yeah, there's a lot of pieces in question for the Cleveland Browns this year, which is one of the reasons, despite their lack of success, that they're worth keeping an eye on. And Duke Johnson isn't even the number one running back on the depth chart. Isaiah Crowell is. And if you remember, Isaiah Crowell had a little bit of little bit of public relations issues earlier this year when he posted a picture on Instagram of a hooded individual slitting a police officer's throat, or rather stabbing a police officer. Makes you wonder if the guy is going to have some PR issues this year, some off-the-field issues. And I like Duke Johnson better as a talent, honestly. Look at their stats last year. Isaiah Crowell, 184 rushes for 706 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 182 receiving yards. And then Duke Johnson, 104 carries, 379 yards, but he had 534 yards through the air. Didn't have a rushing touchdown, had 2 receiving touchdowns. I like Duke Johnson better as a talent overall. Duke Johnson has said that Hugh Jackson has, quote, made it clear that he wants to run the ball and establish a physical mentality, unquote. And I think the primary reason they're doing that is because of RG3. They want Robert Griffin III not to have to throw it like crazy all the time. Because if they can't get their run game going, that's what he's going to have to do. And they don't want him to do that. He's the new guy on the block. They want to establish some cushion for Robert Griffin III. They don't want to have to get the whole team on his back and have him lead him down the season. And they have talent around him. I'm not going to deny it. Their defense still bothers me just a little bit. Other than Joe Hayden, I literally don't know any of the players on the Cleveland Browns team, or on their defense. None of them are ringing a bell for me. Anyways, conclusively, I think that the Cleveland Browns are going to have some success. Yep. There you go. I'll be totally honest, that was literally an excuse for me to play that soundbite. It's the first soundbite I played on this show. And by some success, I mean they'll go 5-11. And that's success compared to last year. Is it not? I think it is. They went 3-13 last year. It's going to take a couple of years for Robert Griffin III to get a feel for the Cleveland Browns. He'll get there, but it won't be this year. 5-11 for the Browns. And their X factor is none other than the new guy himself, Robert Griffin III. It seems sort of cliche, but really, he's the quarterback, and he's new. And after what the Browns have experienced with Johnny Manziel, we want to see how well they can adjust to Robert Griffin III. I know that's been pretty much the theme of the entire podcast, but that's the theme of the Browns. Adjust to RG3, let him get comfortable, don't try anything crazy. Except, if you're the Browns, trying crazy things is probably what you're used to, because you're never in the running for anything. Since the 1950s. People forget that the Browns were actually good in the 1950s. Anyways, guys, that wraps up Volume 2, Episode 4. Coming out tomorrow, we will have the Indianapolis Colts, and tonight and tomorrow, Youth News will be broadcasting a lot. Stay tuned. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.